What's up, everybody? Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's up, Heldy? Jamie, how you feeling, buddy? You feeling okay? We turned the corner today. Heldy is 3 hours into his workday, and I've written one email so far. You know, I don't write emails at work. You know, um, I just kind of message Jamie questions. That's my level of communication with upper management. I just email Jamie and I'll be like, "Hey, can we do this?" And Jamie either tells me yes or no. That's normally the way it works. Braden, good morning, Chris. Wanted to hop in real quick and say, hey, before I go back to work, my main takeaway from ranking so far is why do I hate Brandon Ayuk and Ramondre Stevenson? I appreciate you keeping up with the bits there, Braden. Really, really appreciate it. Do not hate Brandon Ayuk and Ramondre Stevenson. I think my methodology is very clear here. That we're taking the system out of it a little bit here and just looking at these players on their own. But I appreciate you going back and watching the VODs because I know you're not always able to catch us live, but you do catch the VODs and you share your comments pretty regularly. So do appreciate that, Braden. Heldy, it's almost half of my job. So almost 50% of your work on a regular basis is emails. I would say less than 2% of my job is emails. Less than 2%. Hello, Tuttle. What's up, Tate? A good evening to you. Sportsnut asking, what do you think about these running backs making a stand? I always appreciate players going and trying to get what's theirs, trying to get them the most money and the most value for their play. And I think Saquon is one of those players who, other than the injuries, went on the field is productive enough to be in that conversation. So I appreciate it. Braden says all good. The best bit from prospects and props though is the Bears one. Well, Bailey will be in here soon. The bit will continue here today because I don't feel very good about his team's group here at the edge position. Emails, calls, contracts, and spreadsheets. That's the job. Oh, I'm in spreadsheets pretty regularly. Spreadsheets for sure. I have a couple like calls, meetings. I have one today, one tomorrow. And I'm in spreadsheets pretty regularly. Specifically now when it comes to this this ranking series, I'm in spreadsheets kind of working on some stuff. But yeah, that's normally what we do. All right, so I need to do this and I need to then mute it. There we go. We will put the rankings up here on the top. My wireless mouse has lost power here in the pre-show, so I have to use my normal trackpad on my laptop. But all right, everybody, hope everyone's having a great start to their Monday. Hope everyone's having a great start to their week. I need to tweet the show out, and then we can get started. I also need to turn on my ring light behind me. Not entirely set up here, as you can tell. But I hope everyone had a good weekend. I hope everybody is looking forward to today's rankings. I think we're going to generate some controversy. I have a team inside the top 4 that I think is going to generate some controversy, and I'm just telling you right now, I'm not moving them. It's not happening. You're not convincing me to move them. I'm higher on this group than most. I'm higher on a specific player than most, and I'm fully in. I am fully down the rabbit hole of this is one of the top 4 pass rush groups in all of football. So I'm just letting you know now. It's already ready to go. It's locked. That team's locked into a top 4 spot. Sean Black says, Chris, I am ready to be offended. Isn't that what we all come here to do? We all come here. We all gather. Lately, it's 3 days a week when we do these rankings, and I make one fan base upset. Sometimes it's you, Sean, with the Bills. Sometimes it's the Eagles. Heldy gets upset with me with the Colts, and we do it on a regular basis. Janelle gets upset about the Packers. I mean, that's kind of what we do around here. It is my job to elicit a reaction out of you guys, and that we wouldn't be doing a list if I didn't elicit reaction. Heldy says, I already know I won't be offended. I mean, Heldy, the Colts are not ranked very high. The Eagles are ranked pretty high, but the Colts are not ranked pretty high. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you, but the Colts are not ranked pretty high. Not the Colts. Who are you campaigning for today? It's not a great group, Heldy. I did the deep dive on it. It's not a great group. Sorry, I'm just finishing up the tweet. And we will get ready to go. All right, I got to turn the ring light on. Eagles locked in at the top. That'd be incorrect. That would be incorrect if you think the Eagles are locked in at the top. That'd be wrong. Eagles are not at the top. The Eagles are. I mean, they're towards the top. They're towards the top. Top of the general rankings, not number one. Yeah, they are the top of the general rank. They're in a tier. They're in a tier. All right, we'll go to this screen here. Morning, everybody. Well, like I said, hope everyone had a great weekend. Appreciate everybody stopping by here on a Monday. We've got a fun one this week to start the week here on the show with these positional rankings. We're getting closer to the end of this series, but it has been a lot of fun. This is a list that I am really, really excited about sharing with you all today, these edge rankings, because I think we're going to have the conversation. I think we're going to have a great conversation. We're going to have a great debate. Taylor B says that the Titans are at the bottom again, then I'm going to have a take that they have the number one pick this year. They're not. They are not at the bottom. Well, they're towards the bottom. They're in a chunk of teams. I'll just give you the range that they're in, because I think these chunk of teams we can move around here. And I don't want to do the list before we do the list, but from like 22 to like 27, it's a mess. I put Dallas ahead of Philly in edge rankings if you count Micah Parsons as an edge. I mean, I'm not counting him as a linebacker, and I didn't count him as a defensive lineman. So, spoiler alert. You can guess where they are going to be ranked on this list. Are they Arizona bad? Tuttle, are you talking in reference to the Titans? They're not Arizona bad. Arizona once again finds themselves in the bottom three. Okay, we're doing the list. We're doing the list. Ahead of the list. Let's get this show on the road. Let's get this show started. We can have the debate. We can have the conversation. It's what we do here. Let's get this show started. And welcome into the Monday edition of the TDN Daily podcast. Chris Schubert back with you here once again on the show. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everybody is having a great start to their week, a great start to their Monday. We keep the ball moving. We keep this train rolling. We keep moving from station to station, but the train keeps moving as we go through our positional ranking series for 2023. We are still on the defensive side of the ball, and we move to the pass rush group. We did the defensive linemen, the non-edge pass rush group on Friday. We've now transitioned over, and we are doing the edge pass rush group here on Monday. So 1 through 32, we've ranked them all. You guys know the drill. If you've been here, if you've been a longtime listener of the show, you know what we do around here. I've got them ranked 1 through 32. We go through it. We have a conversation. I tell you my methodology. I tell you my thought process. You guys are allowed to lay out your case, to lay out your arguments for why we should move a team up or down. We take those arguments into account, and we make some subtle changes. More than likely, what happens here when we do these lists is we kind of agree on the top 6 or 7 teams. We normally agree on the bottom 4 or 5 teams, and it's the middle teams that we argue 1 or 2 spots with each of these teams, and it is a lot of fun. But we do it each and every time we have these positional ranking series. We argue that middle tier, that middle ground. And I will walk you through a little bit of the methodology here for this list before we get into it. And I want to make something very clear. There are some rookies that are in this list. And I will continue to say that we are putting these lists together, looking at where these groups stack in the National Football League heading into 2023. And while Will Anderson is a very good player, Will Anderson, one of the top draft picks in the 2023 draft class, you have to view him as a net neutral right now when putting these groups together. And so sometimes what we'll do is we will kind of take the approach of where would this team be if Will Anderson Jr., using him as an example, completely panned out to the player that he thought he would be, where would that group rank? And if he wasn't on the team at all, where would that group rank? And we normally go right in the middle sometimes. And there are a couple of teams that we're going to talk about today where I did just that, where if the player pans out to where we think they're going to be, where they would be. If the player wasn't on the team at all, where would that group be? And then we kind of narrow the focus and kind of put them in the middle. There are a couple of teams that we did that with that I think is very important. Another piece of the methodology here, if you have an elite pass rusher, if you have an elite game wrecker at that position, that is enough, in my opinion, to get you a certain level on this list. Now, there's one player and one team in particular where that's not the case, but I do think that if you have an elite game wrecker, if you have at least one player at the position that's got a long enough track record, I think that warrants you being at least a top 16 team. Now, inside that top 16, there are teams that, if they have a ton of depth, are going to be able to make a case to go above some of those game wreckers. But I think top 16 is the floor for some of these teams. And hopefully the list bears out that way moving forward as we do this. So without further ado, we're going to do these in chunks like we always do. The top 5 for me when it comes to edge rankings in 2023, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers, number 1, with Bosa and Mack leading the charge for them, making the case there. Number 2, it was a big pre-show conversation of where these teams would set up. Heldy was making the case Eagles over the Cowboys. There were other people making the case for the Cowboys over the Eagles. I am in the Cowboys over the Eagles camp because we've got Parsons, we've got Lawrence. You can throw Armstrong in there as well. So I've got the Dallas Cowboys at number 2. The remainder of the top 5, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers with Watt, Highsmith, Marcus Golden in that group as well at number 3. And again, the team that I am campaigning for very strongly to be inside the top 5, a group that I would take over some other groups in the National Football League. Give me the Miami Dolphins at number 4 with Jalen Phillips, with Chubb. Those two guys, I think Jalen Phillips is going to have a massive breakout season this year, has been extremely productive in his first 2 rookie seasons, so I will stand on the table for Jalen Phillips and the Miami Dolphins. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles rounding out the top 5 with Reddick, Sweat, Graham, Barnett, Smith. They've got a lot of depth, right? That's going to be the big thing there, so they will round out the top 5. So our top 5, the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Steelers, the Dolphins, and the Eagles, 1 through 5. I have already made the chat angry. 5 teams in, and it's exactly what we love to do here on the show. We will continue rounding out the top 10. We've got the Cleveland Browns at number 6. Not a lot of depth here with this group. I know they picked up Zadarius Smith. Myles Garrett obviously does a lot of the heavy lifting here. Again, game wrecker. There's a floor of how far this team could go, and I think Myles Garrett, one of the best pass rushers in all of football. And so for me, they're at number 6. I have my New York Jets at number 7. This is more of a depth thing than it is anything else. With Lawson, with John Franklin Myers, with year 2 of Jermaine Johnson, with Michael Clemens. There's just a lot of options, a lot of depth that they can rotate through that puts them at number 7. I've got the Bills at number 8. Floyd Miller-Rousseau kind of leading the charge there. At number 8, I've got the Detroit Lions, Aiden Hutchinson entering year 2. Houston, who was a great player, James Houston, was a great player in his rookie season. That group at number 9. And then to round out the top 10, I have the Minnesota Vikings with Danielle Hunter and Marcus Davenport. The disclaimer there being that if they obviously move Danielle Hunter between now and the beginning of the season, you know what we do. If there's ever a major trade or position or free agency acquisition that could change these lists, we go ahead and we tackle that randomly throughout the week on the show. And so for me, we've got Minnesota at 10 right now, but if Danielle Hunter does get traded, that will obviously change things. So that is the top 10. I've made some people angry about my Jalen Phillips hype. Heldy says, I think people simply do not respect Josh Sweat. There are people who would take the Bills over the Dolphins. That's fine. I'm a big believer in Jalen Phillips. I'm a big believer in what this group's going to be able to produce this season with Vic Fangio. And again, I'm buying in to Jalen Phillips having a breakout season, and he's already had 2 solid seasons to start his career. I think he had 8.5 sacks last year or 7.5 sacks his rookie season. He's been a pretty productive player the first 2 years of his career. So, all right, the top 10. And I know there'll be some debates on where some of these teams should fall inside the top 10. And that's kind of the way the chat is rolling right now, is where there's debates on teams inside the top 10. There has not been a huge campaign for a team that I haven't mentioned yet to be in the top 10. Maybe that'll happen as I start to read these teams. At 11, I've got the Washington Commanders with Young and Sweat. At 11, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals at 12. Hubbard, Hendrickson, Sample, Murphy, a rookie in there as well. I've got the Raiders at 13. Sportsnut just said in the chat, interested to see where the Raiders are. I've got the Raiders at 13. Max Crosby, a game wrecker, right? He is a top pass rusher in the National Football League. And like I said it in the pre-show, and I said it at the start of the show. There's a floor that I wanted to. It's an arbitrary thing, but it was a floor that I wanted to install into this list. That if you have one guy that is a game wrecker, that's probably a top 5, top 10 player at that position, then the floor for me was 16. That's as low as I felt comfortable putting you, because that means you have a top half of the league pass rush group if you have one of those elite players. So for me, I think if Tyree Wilson is the player that we think he can be, and the health checks out and he develops and grows into a player, I think with Crosby and Wilson, they have a group that would threaten the top 6 or 7, right? I think with Chandler Jones being a player that I think struggled last year and showed signs of getting older and showed signs of not being the player that he was in Arizona, that pushes this group down for me, because now we have Max Crosby, who's got to do a lot of the heavy lifting. We then have Chandler Jones, who was not very good last year. And then we have Tyree Wilson, and he's a rookie. And so for me, the way that I looked at this is if I assume Tyree Wilson was the player that we thought he was going to be, then I think Crosby and Wilson is a 1-2 combo that puts them in the top 7. I think without Tyree Wilson, Crosby and Jones probably has them closer to the 20 range. So I kind of split the difference and I put them 13. I do not think this is a top 10 pass rush group the way some other people do. I think, again, those are people that are assuming of what Tyree Wilson's productivity is going to be, and I don't want to do that for the sake of this list. So I'm viewing him as a net neutral, and so for me, that's 13. Again, the Chandler Jones fall off last year was real, and that would be the thing that I would warn against when doing this list. I got the New England Patriots at 14. This is a depth thing, right? Matt Judon, again, good enough to probably make the floor for this team. 16. They've got Dietrich Wise. They've got Josh Uche. They've got Keon White, who they've added into that group. So I have them at 14. Taylor B., I know you're asking about your Jacksonville Jaguars. They slide in here at 15 with Allen, Walker, Kayvon Chason in this group as well. They were at 15, rounding out the top 16. Again, I talked about floors, and I talked about top pass rushers. This is where I've got San Francisco falling with Bosa. Behind him's not that great with Jackson and Farrell, but Bosa, again, the floor with that team needed to be 16 for me. In that opinion, Sean Black says Josh Uche is very underrated. I also agree. I think that's more of a depth thing. Judon's kind of the big name in a lot of ways, but for me, Uche kind of with the depth there and Wise does some of the heavy lifting to move them into the top 16. We've got Green Bay at 17, Smith, Gary, Enigbare. They do have Lucas Van Ness, but again, a net neutral for the sake of this conversation. So this felt like a nice bucket to put them in. We've got Tampa at 18, Barrett, Tryon Shoyinka, Nelson, that group, that trio there, the guys that do the heavy lifting. The Giants at 19, Thibodeau, Ojulari, the two big names there that carry. We've got the Saints at 20, Jordan, Granderson, Foskey, Turner. Again, Foskey a net neutral because he's a rookie, but Turner, Granderson, Jordan's a decent enough rotation, I think, to be top 20. A group that I'm really high on personally, but I think until they show it and put it all together, this is kind of where they need to sit. It feels a little weird to have them this low, but I got Baltimore at 21, Bowser, Owe, Ojabo. I think by season's end, we're talking about this group towards the top 16. I think is where their floor might end up being. But for right now, with a lot of question marks over some of these players, I think putting them at 21 made some sense. We got Tennessee at 22. They were a topic in the pre-show conversation. Landry, Autry, Key, Weaver for them at 22. I've got Seattle at 23, Nwosu, Taylor, Hall, Mafe at 23. 24, this is where Houston kind of slots in. They've got Hughes, but if we're going to view Will Anderson as a net neutral, it's hard to push them up higher because Hughes, an older player, I know he's been very productive. But for me, this is kind of where I felt an acceptable range for Houston ended up being. If we want to move them up a couple of spots, I'm okay with that. But again, Will Anderson, we're viewing rookies as net neutrals when it comes to this conversation, so I put them at 24. We got the Carolina Panthers at 25, Burns, Gross Matos, and Haynes, the heavy lifting there. And then we get to the bottom part of this list. Taylor B, when I go to the screen that's got the list, you will see Grenard's name there, okay? His name is on the list as the guys that are notable for that group. So he is on the list, Taylor B. I've got him. Don't you worry. I already said the Panthers at 25. This is where we get to the bottom part of the list, and it gets a little barren down here. We got the Denver Broncos at 26. Gregory Browning, Cooper doing the work there. The Colts at 27. Pay, Lewis, Odeningbo, and Adebore. Again, Kwity Paye's the guy that really does the heavy lifting. Adebore is a rookie, a day 3 rookie in that regard. So again, a net neutral, can't really give them even a little bit of a bump for having a high upside rookie. We've got the Chiefs at 28. Sorry, Braden, for listening back in the VOD. I know you were here in the pre-show, and you'll be listening back in the VOD, but the Kansas City Chiefs at 28, just not a group that inspires a whole lot for me. They've got Karl Aftis, but again, didn't have a super stellar rookie season. Anuduke Uzoma's gonna rotate in as well as a rookie. So again, a group that I can't really get on board with being super high on this list. We got the Atlanta Falcons at 29, Carter, Dupree, Ebiketie, and then the bottom 3, the Cardinals at 30, Collins, Ojulari, Sanders, Thomas, Gardeck. That group there, kind of a depth group that kind of lifts them out of the bottom 2. And then I've got the Bears at 31 with Gibson, Robinson, and Green. And then Eugene says, I just got here and I know the Falcons are last. Nope, Falcons are 29th on this list because the team that is in last at 32nd is the Los Angeles Rams, folks. I mean, just go look at a depth chart for what they've got in terms of pass rushers, and it's not good. It is a lot of not high draft picks, a lot of rookies. I mean, it's just the stars and scrubs mentality that they've been going with for a long time. This is the group where you really, really see it. It's just not a very good group. And so they finish 32nd for me on this list. So we've gotten through. Took us 13 minutes, but we got through 1 through 32. Heldy says the Rams are unique. That would be a word to describe their pass rush mentality for 2023. Eugene says, did I include Calais Campbell? I included Calais Campbell in my other list, my defensive line, defensive tackle list, my non-edge list for 2023. So that is why they're 29th on this list, because I have him in a different category. If I were to move him over to this category, it would obviously change a couple of things for those respective lists. So we're going to keep it the way it is for right now. Maybe if we go back over these lists, we can make some small tweaks down the road. That might be one that we would make. So, all right, 1 through 32. Is there anything that is a gross oversight by me? Is there a team that we absolutely need to stop the presses and need to have a conversation about? I know Heldy wants to have a conversation about Philly. Is there any other team that we want to stress importance for a conversation? Feels pretty good that there's not that the pitchforks have not come out yet. I feel really good about this. I feel like I made a great case for why I have the Raiders at 13 after somebody asked about it, and I made a great case there. I think I made a great case for why Houston's a little bit lower. I mean, I think I've made some good cases here. Heldy says, they were a top 5 most productive pass rush group of all time. Taylor B says the Chargers should be at 1. Joke's on you, Taylor B. The Chargers are at 1. We're good. Cowboys over Chargers. Parsons is the best in the league right now in depth at other spot. Taylor B says the Chargers shouldn't be at number 1. Bosa and Mac, man. I mean, you got two guys. I mean, I get it. I mean, I can understand why you'd want to make a case for the Cowboys. Sportsnut says if Chase Young can actually get a healthy year in Washington, they're at 11 because we can't bet on that. So we have to look at this group as we feel going into 2023. I listen. I think the one thing we could do, and we maybe could appease everybody here. I think Miami's a top 4 group. I just do. That's the belief. I'm a believer in Jalen Phillips, and I'm okay with that. Would we feel comfortable if we flipped Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and the order looked like this? It looked like Chargers, Cowboys, Eagles, Dolphins, Steelers. If that was the new top 5, would we feel a little bit better about it? Philly, the depth kind of puts them above the Steelers and the Dolphins. They're still, I think, behind the Chargers and the Cowboys personally. I'm a big Hassan Reddick guy. I am. I like Hassan. I think the depth is a play there. But I think you go Bosa, Parsons because of the game wrecker ability, being a top end edge rusher at the position. So you go Chargers, Cowboys. We can flip the Steelers and the Dolphins. We can flip the Steelers and the Eagles, put the Dolphins at 4. And again, it's a little bit low for TJ Watt, but you'd have a depth conversation that we could have about that. So I'll put Philly. Philly, I can get to 3. That's where I can get with Philly. So give me a second here because we got to doing the work here in real time. I just think the Eagles will be the most productive again this year. I mean, Heldy, I get what you're saying, and I appreciate the conversation, but like, I have them as a top 3 group now after making the change. If you want to continue to debate whether they should be 3 or 2 or 3 or 1, I mean, at some point we have to move on to another argument, another debate, right? Because I think if I have a team within 1 or 2 spots of where you guys want them, I think we should, call a spade and move on to the next gripe that we have. If you think I'm 7 spots lower on a team, or I should have a team 12 spots higher, I think those are the conversations that we need to have and spend a lot of time on. I think debating on Philly at 5 or 3, okay, we made the change, we now have them at 3. I feel like we can now move on because I think the consistency and the intellectual honesty of the list is still intact, right? And I think that's kind of what we're going for. So, all right, let's lock in the top 5. We'll lock in the Chargers, Cowboys, Eagles, Dolphins, and Steelers. And this is where I will bring you guys the full list. I had Seattle 23. I can't get with the Chargers at 1, and I think it's worth discussion. All right, Tate, if you want to make your case. I'll hear the case. I think the worst thing you're going to do here. I think the worst we're going to do here is we're going to flip the Cowboys and the Chargers, and we're going to have the Cowboys at 2. I think that's at best what's going to happen here. And I think Bosa is incredible. Philly and Dallas are better than the Chargers. I don't think I agree. I'm keeping the Chargers at 1. I'm sorry, I'm not moving them off of number 1. I'm locking it in. Heldy says I don't hate their upside. Yeah, I have Seattle at 23. So, Tate, if you have the Chargers over Philly, you're asking me to move the Cowboys to 1 and the Chargers to 2. One spot. I'll keep my list at that point. I'll keep my list. 1 through 3. That's splitting hairs. That to me is the definition of splitting hairs with the way we have the list. So we're gonna lock it in. I appreciate the argument and I appreciate the conversation, but I think at this juncture to talk about a team moving from 1 to 2 and moving from a team to 2 to 1 is just with the definition of splitting hairs at the top of the list. So I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with what we've got here at the top. The rest of the top 10, we've got Cleveland, the Jets, the Bills, the Lions, the Vikings. Eugene says, this list is your best list so far, Chris. Well done. Now, Eugene, I don't know should I take that as a compliment to just this list, or should I take that as a slight to the other list being terrible in your mind? I don't care either way. I just want to know what I'm dealing with here. Is this more of a compliment to this list, or is this more of a critique of the other lists? I just want to know, if my other lists are just so terrible in your mind that, this list has to be better. I'm just making sure. I just want to make sure we're on the same page here, Eugene. I just, we're not sure. All right, I will pull up the list here for the full screen, so we can see it. This is the screen where that is the case. I know you can't see. I got to zoom in. Just give me a second. Here. The running back list is still pretty bad. Well, that's because your team's not high enough on that list for you, and so you're very upset. All right. So that feels way too zoomed in. We'll zoom out. Okay. So here's what we've got. Let's start a dialogue about the Washington Commanders. Okay, let's. I think the way you move the Commanders up is you believe that a full healthy year of Chase Young is going to, we're going to see the best version of him. That's what you're saying. Now, I think. Oh, Healthy says I think they moved down. Okay, I can get on board with moving them down. I cannot get on board with moving them up. I feel like I have them at pretty much their ceiling. The Jets at 7. You want to move the Jets down? Okay, I mean, Eugene, I understand that you're gonna hit me with the bias, right? I understand you're gonna hit me with the bias, but like I don't know. Do you really truly like Floyd, Miller, and Rousseau? Is that proven enough of a group in Buffalo to take over what the Jets have from a depth perspective? I think it's close. Like I don't think it's unfathomable where I put the Jets. I really don't. Now, if you want to hit me with that JFM and Clemens are going to play a little bit more inside this year, and that might take away some of their pass rush reps outside. Okay, then we can start to get into debate of moving a team down. Will McDonald being a rookie. I got Lawson and Jermaine Johnson kind of doing a lot of the heavy lifting here because I think they're going to be pretty good this year. Cincy and Vegas have at least one better pass rusher over Washington. Guys, I have a real tough time moving the Raiders up. I love Max Crosby, and I saw somebody in the chat said he's the 4th graded PFF edge, and he's constantly pressured QBs the past few years. I agree 100% with the Raiders, but you're just letting Max Crosby do the work because Chandler Jones was awful last year, and Tyree Wilson is a rookie. I can move Cincinnati in front of Washington. We can do that. I'm aware, but Crosby is worth more than both of Washington's pass rushers. Oh, all right. I mean, let me see what it looks like. Let me see how I feel about this. I feel okay about this. I feel okay with Cincinnati 11. All right. I'll do this. I'll put the Raiders in front of Washington. But that's it. Like, that's as high as 12 is as high as I'm willing to go. Now, I will tell you, funny story here. Funny story. When I do these lists, I write all the numbers down, 1 through 32, and I put TBDs in there, right? And what I'll normally do is I normally do the top 3 and the bottom 3 first. And I kind of work through the middle, and then I kind of do it in chunks. I'll do the next 3, and I'll ping pong back and forth until I get to the middle. The Raiders were a team, for the first time when doing these lists, I actually put them in a spot ahead of time. I looked at where I wanted to, the range I kind of wanted to slot them in, and I put them at 12 the first time I did this. So them getting back to 12 is kind of where I originally had them, so I'm okay with that. I think we're having a conversation about Chase Young being healthy, and I think we need to see about Chase Young. And so I think 13 is a very reasonable compromise between where we think they could be if Chase Young is as good as we think he's going to be, and where he would, if he has another terrible year, where they ultimately would probably slide on this list now that we have a bigger sample size. So I think 13 is a nice meeting of the minds there, which is kind of what we're trying to do with these lists. We talk about it all the time. I think that's a very nice compromise. We want to make the case for moving San Francisco up. And I saw somebody in the chat mention it. If we're going to allow Max Crosby to move up the Las Vegas Raiders, then I think we need to allow to have Bosa move up the 49ers. And I think then we get into, do we want to move New England and Jacksonville down? I love the depth of New England and Jacksonville. I really do. I wonder if do we put San Francisco and how about this? Do we feel good about this? About putting the 49ers and Raiders basically together in the same spot? And I like Bosa better than I like Crosby. Do we put them in the same spot, in the same tier, 12 and 13? Or is that a little too high for San Francisco? I think grouping those two teams together, because they are a similar methodology of what we're trying to do. Of they've got one guy that kind of hard carries them, and the rest of the group, I'm not really sure. So we put them together, and I think Bosa greater than sign Crosby. So we'll put them at 12 and 13. I think I kind of like that a little bit more. Bailey, I know you're late. Bears are way down the list. Way down the list. We'll get to them in a second. There's a campaign to move the Jets down. There's also a campaign to move the Bengals above the Vikings. Man, I think Eugene, I see what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree. I think if we start to move the Jets down, the fall for the New York Jets is real. They might slide in like here, like with Washington and New England. They might slide all the way to behind the Raiders if we start to make them fall. Man, I think their group is better than Buffalo. I really do. I do. I think Detroit, you're betting on Hutch and Houston in year 2. John Franklin Myers says JFM, Taylor. Bengals depth and rookie potential puts them 10. Farthest I would drop them is 10. Bailey says the Jets is completely dependent on whether Carl Lawson can get back to his best. They have elite depth. They do have elite depth. Jermaine Johnson in year 2, I think, is going to be a productive player. I didn't even mention Huff, who's a really good, just true pass rusher for that group. I'm okay with moving them down a couple of spots. I still think they need to be a top 10 group. So, do you want to move Buffalo and Detroit up? Do you want to flip Buffalo and the Jets? I mean, I still think I would take the Jets group over Buffalo's group. Miller's older, coming off the injury. They just signed, it's close. I really, yeah, Taylor, Lawson's going to be on the team this year. Yeah. Buffalo should go up for sure. But go up where? I mean, I think the most we're moving them is one spot. They're going to 8. I think their ceiling is 7. To me, it's like the less raw version of Miami. I like Miami's group a whole lot more than Buffalo. All right, I'll flip Buffalo and the Jets, but I would take the Jets group over the Lions group. So I think this is the best that I can get here. And then I saw there was somebody in the chat that wanted to have a conversation of flipping Cincinnati and Minnesota. I think we've got decent enough depth to maybe make that argument, and so we'll do this. And we'll put Minnesota at 11. Lions need another year to move up any further. 100%. I think if Hutch and Houston have years like they did last year, they're going to move up the list. Taylor, if Minnesota loses Hunter and Davenport's their 1, they're outside of the top 16 for sure. I know that's a hypothetical that you're asking, but I would put them below. They would fall below 19. They would fall below 20. They would probably be in this tier, like 22 through 25. With the Titans, the Seahawks, the Texans, and the Panthers. That's probably where they would fall. Would be that range. They would go from 11 to all the way down there. All right, do we feel good about the top 10? Do we feel good about Cleveland, the Bills, the Jets, the Lions, the Bengals? I do. I really like what we did with the 49ers and the Raiders. So I'll lock the top 13. Bears not top 26, disrespectful. Bailey, are you trolling me? Do I have them 27? No, I have them way lower than that. I have them 31. Sorry, Bailey. Not a group I'm getting on board. Green Bay over Jacksonville, more depth, and both have similar number ones. Green Bay over Jacksonville. I don't know why Enikbare's name decided to add a space in there. People want to flip Green Bay and Jacksonville. I don't know if I want to flip Green Bay and Jacksonville. I think I like Allen and Walker, Smith and Gary. I'm going to keep Jacksonville at 16. I like Allen and Walker as a top 2 over what Green Bay's got. And I don't think Chason is... I don't think he's terrible. I think we're going to lock the top 16. I mean, because I think New England's got to be a top 15 team with Judon, and I think they've got great depth. Washington, I think we feel, is pretty good. Gary and Preston have done more than Allen and Walker. Gary and Preston have done more than Allen and Walker. It's an objective statement. I think I agree with it, Nick. I think I agree with it, that Smith and Gary have done more than Allen and Walker. All right, we'll just lock the 15 here because now I feel like we're stun locked. Let's how about we come back to this? How about we come back? Let's put a pin in this. Let's put a pin in this and go down here. Do we anything on the bottom part of this list that we wanted to folks, on behalf of the chat, I'm locking in the Rams at 32. Okay? I'm going to do it for you guys. Because I'm not going to allow any other argument to clout whatever the Los Angeles Rams depth chart looks like at edge rusher. They're going to lock in at 32. So anybody else, any of the other teams that we want to debate down here at the bottom. The bottom 3 is the correct 3. Look at Bailey. You actually agree with me on a Bears thing. It's rare. It's very rare. But here we are. We agree on a Bears thing. My Baron Browning agenda will push the Broncos higher, but for now, this is fine. You could lock into 26. Nick wants me to lock into 20. Nick, that's bold. I appreciate you coming in here in your bold. We can lock all the way up to 26, but I mean, we can't just haphazardly just start locking in the bottom part of the list here. Got to be very careful. All right, so we've locked in. Here we are, folks. Once again, here we are between 16 and 29, debating where these teams should sit. Love it. I absolutely love when we get to these arguments. The Bears D-line is absolutely awful, which is why in order to win, it's going to be high-scoring games. Okay, Bailey. Ravens group is low-key bad. Eugene, there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of potential with Bowser, Owe, and Ojabo. Okay, don't make me defend. I don't want to do this. I like you, Eugene. We have great debates here on the show. I don't want our friendship to fall to this. Us arguing about the Ravens. It's fine. 21's a very fair ranking for them. If we want to move them a couple of spots, that's fine. But I think we're incredibly fair. It's not a great group, but there's potential. And so maybe the 21's not a terrible spot for them. Okay. There was a motion to lock all the way up to 26. And so I guess the question that I would ask is, people want to move Tennessee down? Atlanta's not a great group if we're not including Campbell. Sorry, Eugene. We're just not for today's conversation. We might make a change down the road. Kansas City's group, Karlaftis is kind of leading the way there. So we'll put them there. I mean, I think there's the Denico Autry disrespect is real healthy. Yeah, I'm with you. The Denico Autry disrespect is very, very just, I can't believe it. And I think we're going to lock in Indy. Because, again, Quiddy an okay player. They're just basing on Edibore, who's a rookie for the sake of this conversation. So, all right, we're 16 through 26. There was a motion to move the Panthers up because of Burns. Nick, I think it's a great point. This group right here is a nice, solid trio. And you know what a nice solid trio gets you? We don't have an elite pass rusher at the top. We don't have a terrible group with a lot of depth. Do you know what just a nice solid trio gets you? 22nd on the list. I mean, isn't that not exactly what we're trying to go for here? When you just have three guys that you're just, reliable, solid, they're not going to wow you, you get 22nd on the list. Maybe we move you up a couple of spots, but this is kind of the range you sit in with something like this. That's kind of where you sit. I'm going to lock the Broncos in at 26. There was a motion to move both Houston and Carolina up, which would then push Baltimore down, which is kind of what everybody wants. Burns might have to hard carry here. He can, but where's he going to hard carry to? Because are we going to hard carry him all the way up to this? Are we going to hard carry all the way up to 21? I was going to go here. I was with Bailey. If we were going to allow the Brian Burns hard carry, I think it was going to get him to here. I think it was going to get him to 20. And they were going to move up. And I like Thibodeau and Ojulari a lot. And I think this now gives us a really nice group, 16 through 20, that we can lock in. All right, so we're gonna lock this in. Jerry Hughes and John Grenard are solid, plus Anderson has huge potential to be solid day one. And I'd rather have Burns. I agree. All right, we can do this. We can move Houston up to here, behind the Saints. And that moves Baltimore down. Baltimore's now moved down 2 spots, folks. They're now down to 23. So now we've got the Saints at 21. Titans should be 25. I can't get there. I can't. I kind of want to flip them in Baltimore now. And again, now remember earlier when I said I don't want to argue one spot? Here I am arguing one spot here at the end of this list. But I like this. I'm locking this in. I'm not moving Tennessee lower than Seattle. I think this trio is better than anything Seattle can put out. And Nwosu's a good player. Nwosu had a great year last year, great start to the year last year, right? But I would take this trio over, so I'll put them 24. It's perfect other than that Chargers snafu. You're not going to let me live down the Chargers at number 1, are you? All right, the final list that we're going to read here in order. It's production versus potential for Tennessee versus Baltimore. Yes. All right, here we go. The list finalized. Chargers 1, Cowboys 2, Eagles 3, Dolphins 4, Steelers 5, Browns 6, Bills 7, the Jets 8, Lions 9, Bengals 10, Vikings 11, 49ers 12, Raiders 13, Commanders 14, Patriots 15, Jags 16, Packers 17, Bucks 18, Giants 19, Panthers 20, Saints 21, Texans 22, Ravens 23, Titans 24, Seahawks 25, Broncos 26, Colts 27, Chiefs 28, Falcons 29, Cardinals 30, Bears 31, the Rams 32. Oh, Tate, I know you're just having fun. It's what we love here on the show. It's what we love to do here on this show. When we've got a couple more lists to do here. We're going to do linebackers, true linebackers on Wednesday, and then we're going to close out the week, I think, with corners on Friday. So those are the next 2 lists that we've got this week here on the show. So appreciate everybody in the podcast feed listening to the show. You guys know the drill. Rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. We greatly do appreciate that. Share the show with a friend, coworker, loved one, somebody you think would enjoy the conversation. You want to see the YouTube version of the show? We pull the list up on the big screen. You can kind of see it in action Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel. You can catch us live there each and every day of the week. And you can catch the VODs as well on demand. You just go to the Draft Network YouTube channel, hit live, and then you can, see all of them from there. So appreciate everybody making this show a part of their day. Hope everyone has a great rest of their Monday. Talk to y'all tomorrow. All right, folks. Not a huge pre-show. I got 15 minutes until meeting, and I got to get some stuff done before that meeting begins. So, I need to get out of here. So I appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate everybody being a part of the conversation. 2 more lists this week. We do have a show tomorrow. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about yet. I will think about it throughout the rest of the day. And we will have that for you all tomorrow. So appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate everybody bantering and being a part of the conversation. Have a great rest of your Monday, everyone. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow.